Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Don, and today's video I'm going to be going over the new YesWelder DP200. This is a new welder that they've been developing for a while now. It's a improvement or an upgrade to their original YWM 211P. This is a dual pulse MIG welder, but it will also do TIG and stick welding. So it's also capable of doing aluminum. That's one of the beauties of having the double pulse or dual pulse. It can do pulse welding aluminum MIG. So I did the original review of the YWM 211P, and YesWelder contacted me a while back and said they're going to be making an improved version. And so I gave them a bunch of ideas on what would improve that welder, and what you see here is the result of all of their improvements that they've made. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all the systems. I'm going to show you all the improvements that they made. It's basically, it's got, you know, a lot of the features that the old one had, but they've made it so much simpler and so much more streamlined. The user interface is so much cleaner and easier to use that it's really basically a whole new welder. They didn't just take the old welder and tweak it a little bit. They basically redesigned the whole thing. And so I'm going to go through all the features that it has, all the things that they improved, and go over all the interface, how to use it, or at least simply show you basically how it works. I'm not going to do a how-to video. I'm just going to basically show you the basic systems. And then I'm going to take it out. I've got a couple projects. I started a welding business a couple years ago, so I'm in the middle of a couple projects right now for customers, and so I did some preliminary testing with it, and it's working so good that I'm going to use it in actual work on a couple of these customer projects. Alright, so this is the front of the welder. I'm going to turn it on here in a second, and we can go through all the settings and features on the control board or on the user interface. It's got a big 7-inch screen. When I turn it on, it goes through initial startup, and the fan comes on full, and then after a few seconds it goes to its normal resting setting. There, it goes down now. Let me pull the camera up a little bit closer and I'll show you how it works. So here's the main screen once I have it turned on. It goes to whatever your last process you were using. And so last I was using MIG for steel, and you can see it does inches per minute for your wire speed, and then it has your volts. So you can control volts over here and wire speed over here just directly on the screen. This is your main button for scrolling through all the options, and so you can see as you go through all of the parameters that you would want to turn on and off. If you go to the first one, it's set up for what metal you're using, and this is all under MIG mag. So it has steel, stainless, and then both types of aluminum that wire that you would be using, 4043 and 5356. And to get out of it, if you want to change, you just turn this knob and it'll scroll through the process. Click it again, pushing the button, and it takes you out of the menu, and you're back to ready to weld. You have your gases. It has all the different gases you would want. I have it set for 100% CO2 because that's what I'm using. Next is your wire size. You got 24 thousandths, 30, 35, and 45 thousandths, which I thought was really nice. A lot of the welders don't come with a 24, 25 thousandths setting, so this is nice to see. You then go to your thickness of your material, because this is completely synergic. You can make your adjustments, but this gets you close, and if you want to turn up the wire speed or your volts, you can adjust, fine tune and then save it in your memory as a preset memory setting. Click on that, you can go through all your different sizes of steel, and whatever you select, when you go out, you can see that it automatically adjusts the wire speed and your voltage down here. You have your trigger for your gun. You have 2T or 4T, you have spot, and you have S4T, which stands for special 4T. And that one allows you to do a bunch of different fine-tuned parameters within the 4T program. I'll get into that later when I show welding aluminum. We get out, it has memory. One of the nice things is that you can save up to 50 programs. And this is 50 programs, preset settings. The old model would only let you do 9, I believe, maybe 10. But this allows you to save up to 50 just in MIG and MAG. If you go to another process like TIG, you can save up to 50 settings there. So you can have a whole library of preset settings. You next go to MIG gun, click on that, and it shows you can either use the MIG gun with the main spool, or you can switch over to spool gun. So it has down on the bottom here, it has the hookup for a spool gun, and you can use that for either stainless or aluminum. Click out of that. You have gas check. This one doesn't have a menu. All it is if you click it when it's on gas check, it will open up the solenoid. Gas will flow, so you can flush your line. If you were using a different gas and you want to switch to TIG and have just argon, you can hold it. It'll turn gas on. You can hear the solenoid click. When you let it run through a few seconds, you press it again and it will stop the flow of the gas. We click one over to pulse. Click it on. You can either do single pulse, turn it on. You have to scroll over to the right or left. If you keep scrolling, you'll do on and off for dual pulse. And so right now I don't need pulse, so I'm just going to turn it off. Go back out. You can go into your advanced settings. Within your MIG mag, you can change pre-flow. You can go to your welding amps, your wire speed, inches per minute. You have burn back, how much, some people call it trim, for pulling your wire back up closer to the nozzle. And then you have post flow. These are features you don't usually see on a standard MIG, which is pretty advanced. You click it one more time, scroll over to the right, or actually back at the beginning. The very first one was inductance. This is a really nice feature. You can adjust your inductance. You can see I have it set at 7. It's one of my favorite features with the YesWelder MIGs, is that they have the inductance adjustability, and it really makes it so you get a lot less splatter or spatter on your welds. So that is one of my favorite features with the YesWelder MIGs. Going back out, and with each process, like aluminum MIG, I'll show you that in the advanced settings you can make a lot of changes and customize your programs. If we go back out, go to the home button, go to TIG. You can see that it's set up for steel. That's really the only choice here between stainless and regular carbon steel. One of the cool things that I noticed, and I'll show you right now because I have my TIG pedal right here. There it goes right there. So you have positive ID that the machine knows that your foot pedal is hooked up and that you now have amperage control while you're TIG welding. That's a nice feature that you don't see on a lot of lesser machines. Most of the time they don't have the capability for a foot pedal on a MIG, and they don't recognize. Usually you have to hold the pedal down or do something that makes it recognize the pedal. But this one shows it right on the screen when you're getting ready to TIG weld. Plug it in and it pops up on the screen. Alright, let's go back out. Stick settings. Pull it up. You have your different rods. You have 60 or 70 series rods. Alright, going back out to MIG Mag. We're going to select that, and then I'm going to show you the aluminum side of it. If we go select our material, I'm using aluminum 5356. So you go to that, it obviously automatically switches to 100% argon on the gas, which is what you want, and so it already knows. So you then have your thickness of wire, your thickness of material you can select. Alright, in the 2T trigger is what it's set at right now. This is for the MIG process. You have option of 2T, 4T, spot, and S4T. 2T is just pull the trigger, weld, let go, it stops. 4T, you pull the trigger, it starts welding, you can let go, and it will continue going, and it will keep welding. You don't have to hold the trigger. And then when you press the trigger again and let go, it stops the welding process. So if you have very long welds and things like that, where you just don't feel like holding the trigger and you just want to concentrate on running beads, that's a great feature also. The spot comes with its own parameters, and so you can set that in the advanced how long of a spot timer you want. And then one of the best features of this welder is this S4T. This is stands for a special 4T, and what it does, it allows you to change individual parameters within each of the 4 parts of the 4T. You will have a parameter that you can adjust. So it gives you a lot more flexibility, and let me show you that now. I'll select it and we'll go back out, and so within this you now have all this adjustability. So you can adjust your pre-flow, you can go up and you can adjust your start amps. And so one of the beauties of this is when you pull the trigger and hold it, it will go to your start amperage. And so one of the nice things about wire feeding aluminum with double pulse or dual pulse or even just regular pulse, having pulse aluminum MIG and the ability to start out at a higher amperage is a real big benefit, because one of the things with aluminum is that it transfers heat so rapidly that when you first start out, if you're welding, 1/8 inch or thicker, the aluminum's cold, it takes a lot more amps to get good penetration and a consistent puddle than when you get into the weld a little ways. That's when it starts to overheat and the heat begins to run ahead of the weld and you can burn through. So the weld amperage that you were at the beginning of your bead now has gotten too high. So what this 4T does is the S4T setting. It allows you to adjust this, bump your amperage up on this start amperage up to what will be efficient and make a good penetrating weld at the beginning of your weld. And then when you release to the second part of the 4T, it'd be number 2, you then will have a ramp down, which is this next one right here. Once you notice that your weld puddle is starting to penetrate deeper than you really want, you can let go of the trigger and it will downslope into, and you can adjust this, how long of a downslope you want. Right now it's set at 0.3 of a second. You can make it ramp down slower or faster. And then you can go to your next one, which is your standard welding amperage. that is good for once the puddle or once the metal has heated up and that heat is traveling ahead of the weld, you need a lot less amps. So you can adjust this to what's optimal for, you know, the thickness of welding that you're doing. And then you also now have the next one, which is called the crater slope. Once you press the trigger a third time, or it's in the third section, you press it the second time. So you press it to turn it on, let go to go to regular welding, press it again, you go into the downslope into crater, which this is the amperage that you use for, you use a lower amperage so that you can fill in the crater at the end of a aluminum weld. Whether you're TIG welding or MIG welding, you want to have no crater at the end, because that dimple at the end is where aluminum welds will crack. So you want to fill that in and put a little button in there so that it's structurally sound and strong at the end of your aluminum weld, especially if anything's going down the road or is going to have vibration or flex to it. Those are the places that it will always begin to crack and fail, is at the end of your weld. So setting up your crater fill, this is a really advanced feature for aluminum pulse welding. And what you do is you set your amperage much lower, or in this case wire feed speed, and you set it lower so that the amperage is only there just enough to fill in that puddle. And once the crater is filled, you can just let go of the trigger for the second time, and that stops the weld. And then after that you have burn back and post flow. Alright, one of the other things I did want to mention is that this welder also has a settings feature over here at the end. If you click on it, you can change the language, you can change the units. Right now I have it set on imperial, so it's in inches, but you can switch it to metric or imperial, whichever works good. You can go to language. The only one it has in it is English, so can't change that. But lightness, you can adjust the brightness of the screen. Click on that and you can turn it down, turn it up. You can go to light mode. They have a light or dark. I thought this was pretty interesting. You go into dark mode and it goes into this setting. So you go to there, you go back out, and you now have a much less bright. If you're in a darker room, and your shop's kind of dark, you probably might not want the very bright white screen. So if we go to home, we can go back to settings. They also have a reset. So if you want to go back, like you don't feel like you have it backed, you've messed up settings and you don't know where it was supposed to be, you can actually reset all the settings back to the factory parameters. We don't want to do that. It also has a contact us. It has all of your information for toll-free number and the hours, and support through email, all that right here, right on the machine, so you don't have to go looking for it. And then it has your YesWelder DP200 logo, but it also has the version, so you can see what version software that it's running. Since it is upgradable, this is probably something that you want to know in the future. If they come out with version 1.2 or 3 or 4, this will show you what version you're on and whether or not you need to upgrade to the latest software. Alright, so that's about it for the settings. Let's go take it out in the shop and I'll show you how it welds. Alright, so this is the initial welds. I've done a little bit of practice. I just got this welder a couple days ago, and I played with it yesterday, working out a few settings just so I could start, making sure you know, that I could weld with it efficiently and do good structural welds with it, because this is for a customer of mine. It's a flatbed made out of aluminum. So these are 1/4 inch cross members and bed rails. So these are very structural to this aluminum bed build, and so I needed to make sure that they were good. I actually did a bunch of test welds, cut them, etched them so that I could make sure that the penetration was good, and I had to adjust some settings so I could get better penetration, and now I've got it set up so it's welding great. So these are going to be the first actual welds with the DP200 from YesWelder, and yeah, let's get to welding. Alright, I just wanted to show you some of the welds that I did with the DP200. Here in the sunlight you can see the welds better. You can see how clean they are. Alright, so I got the DP200 set up for steel. And I've got a job I gotta do for a customer. I gotta make some bearing brackets for large 3-inch bearings to go on the end of some pipe. So this is all 1/4 inch, and so I figured I'd see how it welds on steel and just use it on a customer's project. Alright, let me show you what it looks like. Alright, you can see it makes nice, beautiful, uniform welds. Very clean, not a lot of splatter. Alright, so I've got the DP200 set up for TIG. I've got size 20 torch, air-cooled. You do have to have a torch. This did not come with a torch. I had to use one that I had, and then I also had to rig it for the argon with a valve, because you have to use a torch that has a line that goes right to your regulator. Most of these types of torches that would use with a TIG like this is the type that has the valve right on the torch, so you can turn it on and off as you need it. I didn't have that, so I just took one of my other air-cooled torches and I put an inline valve and hooked it right to my bottle. Alright, let me turn this thing on, and I've got some 14 gauge tubing that I'm going to run some beads on, do some fillet joints, and see how it goes. For a guy that wants to have an all-around machine, this thing welds really nice. So if you're looking for a MIG machine that will TIG weld as well, if you need to do stainless or carbon steel, it's a DC only TIG, so you aren't going to weld aluminum with it, but for really clean carbon steel and stainless welds. I think this one's a great choice. Let me, I'll pull the camera off and show you a close-up. And that's the first weld I did. You can see it's a nice clean TIG weld. And there's one I did tying in the end. So as you can see, it does some nice, let me get it to focus here, does some nice uniform TIG welds. Very clean, has a nice stable arc, doesn't wander all over the place. It's easy to make a nice consistent puddle. Overall, I'd have to say that I'm very impressed. Alright, so what do I think about the new DP200 welder? Well, I have to say I'm extremely impressed. I built this flatbed aluminum truck bed for a customer of mine, and I used the DP200 for all of the structural welds, for all of the frame. Everything that was the bigger, heavier duty welds that would have taken me a long time with a TIG welder, this thing did it in probably a quarter of the time, maybe less than that. The quality of welds, I was extremely impressed. It's very fast, efficient, and it makes beautiful welds on aluminum. The fact that a 200 amp MIG can do structural welds on 1/4 inch tubing is quite a testament. And I have to say that it probably saved me on this build for this truck bed. It probably saved me a third of the time of what it would have normally taken me. And so when you're in business and you're trying to make money, that's a huge savings. It saves me a lot of time that I can put towards other details. This machine, I was even more impressed with the TIG welding. It has a very stable arc. It's honestly the first one that I've been able to test where I was able to use a foot pedal with a lift TIG. So this is kind of a milestone for MIG welders using TIG, as an adjunct or an accessory. You can use a foot pedal is huge for a guy working in his home workshop. So I find that as a wonderful feature. The user interface is so simple to use that I didn't have a manual for this, so I had to figure everything out on my own. I had the prototype for about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and then they sent me the retail version, this one, and they're identical. You can't tell them any difference on the outside, but the inside, the software they changed, and they made some upgrades as far as the user interface and made things even simpler. So I've got to play with both machines, and they both performed identical, very well. If you're wanting to build things out of aluminum and not have to learn how to TIG weld, this is a great option. And in the future here, I'll do some how to set up the machine and give you some program parameters as I get working, because I've got a bunch of projects that I'm going to use this on. And so I will figure out some welding parameters for the aluminum MIG and put them up on another video. That way you'll have that as a resource, not just the factory parameters. I'm talking about the S4T, the customizable programs. So I'll put those up so that you'll have them to get going with as well. Overall, I'm very impressed. I think it's a great machine, and I think it will be a wonderful addition to a shop if you're looking to do welding in your garage, or even if you have a business like mine where I build custom equipment and things like that. It's not something that I do all the time, needing pulse aluminum, but I do a lot of aluminum fabrication, and I'm going to start to integrate this into my business as to speed up my workflow and things like that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I appreciate you watching, and I thank you guys. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll be glad to answer them, whatever I can. I thank you, and I'll see you on the next video.